Today, I'm reviewing episode 1323 from the Joe Rogan Experience. This episode he had on a guest, Andy Neo, and they were discussing fascism. Fascism, let me get the dictionary definition for you. Let's just suss out what we're talking about here because I'm pretty new to this. So fascism is a radical right-wing authoritarian categorized by dictatorial power, forcible suppression of opposition, and strong regimentation of society and the economy, which came into prominence in early 20th century Europe. That's the Wikipedia definition. And this episode with Andy Neo, he talks about how he is a journalist whose job, he was quite fascinated by the ultra left-wing movement in Portland, Oregon, in the United States. And over there they had some violent riots, and he, defending his freedom of speech, thought it would be nice to write a story on it and just reserve his right to express what's going on in the world. And he was maliciously beaten. And it reminded me of the French Revolution. I recently researched the French Revolution because I'm a bit fascinated by history, because you need to understand history to understand where you're going in the future. Now this relates to it because in the French Revolution, the local Parisian government, they wanted to override the monarchy that was in there, the French kings and queens that had been going on for hundreds of years. And I could see where they're coming from, because who wants to have someone born into wealth and having these extravagant parties and they were just throwing down resources when there was a crisis in the French country where they didn't have enough bread, not enough to eat, and they were starving, and they were hearing about these lavish parties of luxury and just endless throwing amount of wealth in the royal house. And obviously that's going to make you upset and aggressive. So what they did is they overthrew the French monarchy, and decided that you cannot say anything against the revolution. And so they actually became fascist in themselves, because they were against the monarchy because they allowed no alternate powers, right? They were violently oppressing anyone who said anything against them. But then the people who were against the monarchy, they became just as bad, because they would not allow anyone else to write anything about them that was seen as opposing. And this reminds me of the radical left, because like Joe Rogan said in this episode, a lot of the people in this NATAF or anti-AF, a lot of them are just genuinely good people that they really want to rebel against the unjust authorities and the radical right wing. Like perhaps they have these idealistic notions of socialism, which in theory sounds wonderful, the idea of this utopian society where resources spread equally and the distribution of wealth isn't so skewed because of the free market system where you need money to make money. So obviously the shareholders are going to do incredibly well and keep doing better, and they're getting richer and richer, and the divide is getting bigger. But to throw it all down, just throw it into socialism, it's not really the right way to go, because the only example we have in that history was the Soviet Union, and that didn't really work out very well. And so, in general, you cannot just overthrow something radically, because look what happened in the French Revolution. The opposition became just as bad as what they were trying to eradicate. The same as in this case here. These anti-AF people, I'm not sure the correct, let me hear it again.
Attacked by Daryl Turner, who's the president of the police union in the Democratic Socialist America, or white identity extremism country. It's
Antifa, whatever, that's not the point. So their original morals is, we want to rebel against the current, against like white supremacy and things like that, but then they beat a man up for trying to express his opinion. This is a non-violent Vietnamese, well-educated, well-spoken man and he is open homosexual, and he is, very calm, and he's well dressed, and he's like, he's not a person who seems threatening. And everyone knows you need to be able to express both sides of the story to strengthen your side. Now, to stop someone from wanting to write a story about you, you are in essence empowering the opposition, because it shows what you're trying to hide. So I've noticed the same thing in the French Revolution. They will not allow anyone to go against the revolutionaries. But then look at yourself. I think you have to see yourself from an outsider's perspective in 100 years' time. They're going to see it as like, well, actually, you're the bad guys, because you're the ones who just killed everyone, off with their head with the guillotine, without any rights to trial. It was like a very quick one. It wasn't just, and they only had their own little community, and obviously there was a lot of rage going on because of the lack of nutrients going around, lack of bread. And so the moral of this little ramble of mine is that be very careful that you don't get swept up in the moment in this mob mentality where you feel like you have to overthrow everything, because the best thing to change something is do it small incremental steps. And violence is never the answer, because the only people who are really good at violence are those who lack empathy and those who are usually in power, and you cannot beat someone with violence, because the powers that be, the people you're trying to rebel against, they have advanced military and advanced police force, and there's no point trying to be violent against that. What you can do is use education and awareness and just live by example. Like if you show your life and your community just being happy, healthy, attractive, successful, energetic, and vibrant, people will say, wow, you're doing really well. I want to be like you because I've just noticed you, not because you have forced it down my throat. You have to want to seek it for yourself. And so my message is, in Australia, we're not very political because, we've got such a good country. But in America, it seems like there's a big divide between the radical left and the radical right. And my message is to any of them is to not be violent against each other, because you just why? You'd be just as bad as what you're trying to stop. And look at it in history. That can give you examples of how your behaviour will be scrutinised. So with history, the information is always written by the winners. And so you have to get the little points of everyone's opinion to be able to make your own opinion. So it's really hard to know what morally is right and wrong, but you can research history to be able to grasp the best bits of each part of it. And to me, what happened to this man, Andy Ngo, was wrong. Because he has his right to say his opinion. He's a journalist, and he was reporting on the violent riots, and that is his right. And you can read that, what he's written, and perhaps you can even strengthen your argument because you know what the opposition thinks. And that's actually another problem I have with university, is that they are so radically left-wing, is they're trying to indoctrinate the next generation to think a certain way, but it's so skewed to one certain way, it leaves no chance for any reasonable argument. To only show one side and neglect another, it might make people want to rebel and actually go radically right, because you've seen how much we've been pushed to think a certain way that it makes the opposition seem appealing. But what I was taught is that you have to show 50% both sides in a non-biased way. This is their argument, this is my argument. This is their argument again. Now it's up to you to see what you like as the best. Maybe you can want half of this and half of this is good, and you can make a new version of what you think is right. And then someone can research you, and they can keep fine-tuning as life goes on and gets better and better. And so I think it's so important to show both sides of the story, because you never know. You actually may be the bad guy, and maybe you have good intentions, but you can get caught up in the moment and the power struggle, and maybe you're apprehensive about getting older. Maybe the fact that you're putting on weight. There's a lot of things you may be anxious about, and it may be skewing your perception and your moral judgment. So yeah, this is a bit off topic, but yeah, that was my episode 1323 brief review of JRE, Joe Rogan Experience, and I was relating it to the French Revolution and basically how in history it happens time and time again. Okay, there's a person in power, and someone rebels, takes over that person, and then this person doesn't allow anyone else to take over them, and it becomes just as bad. So yeah, think of it that way. You never know if you're the right guy or the wrong guy, so you have to really, really allow both sides of the story so that someone else make the judgment for you.